For almost 9 months, Marty lived in a cage, a square of metal and bricks in the animal shelter. Time moved strangely there. Days were measured by footsteps in the hallway, by the clatter of bowls, by the slam of cage doors that echoed like thunder. Dogs came and went. Puppies with bright eyes were lifted out and carried away by laughing families. Older dogs followed, tails wagging, hope bursting out of them like light. Marty stayed. She was a golden retriever, with pale, white markings along her chest and muzzle, the kind of dog that people pointed to in calendars and commercials. But she shrank from noise. Every slammed door made her flinch, her ears folding flat against her head, her breath coming too fast. Sometimes she tried to disappear, pressing herself into the back corner of her cage, hoping that the wall might swallow her up and keep her safe. The staff noticed. They always did. They spoke softly to her, moved slowly, and wrote notes on her file. Skittish, fearful of loud noises, gentle. But notes didn't open cages. Notes didn't make families stop. Still, Marty waited. Deep inside her, there lived something fragile and unbroken, a quiet hope, almost a prayer. One day, she believed someone would see her, someone would choose her. Faith was all she had left, and she clung to it the way she clung to the thin blanket beneath her paws. Luke saw her long before he truly noticed her. He was a volunteer, one of those steady souls who showed up week after week without fanfare. He cleaned up after the dogs, refilled their water bowls, and walked those that pulled too hard or refused to move at all. He passed Marty's cage countless times, and every time she lifted her head, her tail thumped once or twice against the floor. Her eyes followed him, not demanding, not desperate, just hopeful. "Is it my turn yet?" she seemed to ask. One Friday afternoon, Luke stopped walking. He crouched in front of her cage and met her gaze. What he saw there wasn't fear so much as endurance. She hadn't given up on people, not after 9 months, not after being forgotten or ignored. Something in Luke's chest tightened. That weekend, he took her home. Marty stepped into Luke's backyard like a pilgrim entering holy ground. Grass under her paws, wind carrying the sound of distant voices. Space. She stood still for a long moment, unsure, then took a cautious step forward. Fetch became her joy, though she favored one back leg, hopping when she ran too hard. At night, she slept lightly, always listening, but she slept. Luke's wife, Alexis, watched from a distance. She was pregnant, tired, preoccupied. She didn't reach for Marty, didn't smile, but Marty knew. She sensed the fragility of the life growing inside Alexis and treated her with careful reverence. One Sunday afternoon, a plate shattered on the kitchen floor, sharp and sudden. Alexis had felt dizzy. It slipped from her hands. The sound was like a gunshot. Marty snarled and barked. It wasn't anger, it was terror, raw and uncontrollable. She bared her teeth, then fled behind the couch, trembling so hard her whole body shook. Luke rushed to Alexis first and helped her to her bed. She needed to rest. Then he returned to Marty. He lowered his voice, turned on soft music, and placed a blanket near the couch. Slowly, gently, he coaxed her out. She rested her chin on his feet and breathed. It was then that Luke realized what the shelter must have been like for her. Barking, slamming doors, echoes of some disaster. Marty clearly lived in fear. On weekend walks, Marty stayed close, brushing against Luke's leg as if checking that he was real. Her gratitude was quiet but constant. A lick to his hand, a soft glance upward. Luke began to believe that love, given patiently enough, could heal anything, until the branch snapped. They were walking in the countryside when the tree cracked, splitting with a sound like the sky breaking open. The heavy branch fell, leaves and debris exploding outward. Marty spun in panic, her survival instinct surging. She bit Luke's outstretched hand and bolted into the forest. Pain and shock blurred together. Blood soaked Luke's sleeve as he called her name. Minutes passed like hours. Then she appeared on the path behind him, head low, tail tucked, eyes avoiding his. She trembled, submitting, apologizing in the only language she knew. Luke knelt beside her, despite the pain. "It's okay," he whispered, and somehow it was. At home, Alexis washed and bandaged his hand, fear hardening into resolve. "You can't bring her here anymore," she said. "We're about to have a baby." Luke didn't argue. He didn't know how. The shelter staff were devastated when they heard what had happened. And then came worse news. Money, the shelter's lifeblood, was gone. The principal donor had died. The town was too small to save them. Shelters everywhere were full. The announcement came quietly, but it landed like a death sentence. The shelter would close. The animals would be euthanized unless what? Marty's name was on the list. On a gray autumn Sunday, Luke took her for one last walk. The sky was low and heavy, as if even heaven was holding its breath. Marty trotted beside him, content, unaware of the end that was rapidly approaching. When it was time to return her, she looked at Luke, whimpering softly. Luke broke. As the shelter lights appeared through the windscreen, tears blurred his vision. He stroked Marty's head. As he neared the shelter's floodlit sign, he suddenly pressed hard on the accelerator and drove straight past. Home was not peaceful that night. Alexis was furious, exhausted, afraid. Finally, her voice breaking, she said, "One bad move by that dog, and she's gone." Luke wondered if he would be soon to follow. He nodded. Faith, he knew, often asked for courage before certainty. After the baby arrived, Alexis hovered over the child protectively. She ignored Marty, who wisely stayed out of the way, sleeping quietly, watching. Alexis grew weaker in the weeks that followed. She was dehydrated and shaky. One afternoon, she fainted near the back door just as the wind slammed it shut. When she woke, panic surged. The baby was inside, alone. She rang Luke, who happened to be pulling into the drive at that moment. He helped Alexis into the house. She was saying, "The baby, the baby." It was then that they both saw the child. Marty lay on the couch, her body curved protectively around the sleeping infant. She lifted her head and wagged her tail. Once, twice. Peace filled the room like a blessing. Alexis sank into a deep lounge chair and wept. In that moment, faith took shape. Not as words, but as a dog who had survived storms, cages, and fear, and still chose love. Marty had waited faithfully, and hope had finally come home.